welcome to the Pain Track. In case you're just jumping in here, I'm Matt. I'm going to be your guide down this training program. And congrats on taking that first step towards ending your shoulder pain. So in this section, we're going to get you started down the road to success with two things. That's going to be get ahead of the pain and then fix the cause. So starting with that first step, getting ahead of the pain. This means making changes around the things in your life that are causing your shoulder pain to happen. And those changes will lead to fixing the cause, which happens with a 30-day training program. And in that program, we're going to work on improving your strength, your mobility, and your coordination, which all come together to end your shoulder pain. Now, each day of following crossover symmetry, you'll have immediate feedback after you go through the program. Your posture is going to feel different. You may even feel immediate relief from shoulder discomfort that maybe have been bothering you for years. But those lasting results, they do not happen in just one session. And that's why we developed a 30-day program to fix that. It's going to take that daily commitment. It's not a huge commitment. It only takes about 5 to 10 minutes per day, but it does need to get done. So I'd encourage you to set a goal that you're going to commit 30 days to following the crossover symmetry system daily. And write it down, put it somewhere you will see daily. I'll be your guide, leading you through that training program. And if you have any issues moving forward, please reach out to us directly at support@crossoversymmetry.com. If those questions are related to pain or if you need movement help, it will most likely be answered directly by me. So thankfully, we have seen incredible results and thousands of athletes without needing medical intervention. Just following crossover symmetry solved all the underlying issues that were leading to their pain. But there are conditions that may need more advanced medical help. So in this next step, we're going to walk you through our red flag shoulder screen. It's going to help you identify more advanced medical issues that we would recommend a consult with a medical professional. But even if you're clear from the screen and you feel in doubt, I would encourage you to see a medical professional about your shoulder issue. That way you can rest assured in moving forward into crossover symmetry. Now, with that said, I would encourage you to head to the next section. We're going to walk you through that red flag screen. And then after that, we're going to move into the next step, which you just talked about. It's that step where we start talking about getting ahead of pain. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you in that red flag screen. Hey, and welcome to the red flag screen. So in this section, we're going to look for more severe medical issues that should be evaluated by a medical professional. I would say these conditions are largely quite rare, so don't start looking at your symptoms and saying, oh, I have the worst possible thing it could be. But it is good to evaluate it before we get into the training program. Now, the first red flag is going to be neck or spine disorder. So first thing you're going to do is look up at the ceiling, and take the chin down to the chest, then take your chin to both shoulders. We're looking for any sort of radiating pain or numbness down the neck, back, or arm. And then in addition to that, we're looking for significant loss in range of motion. So maybe you can't get the chin all the way over to that shoulder. That's going to be okay. But if you can't even get it moving in that direction, that would be a red flag. The second screen is going to be atrophy or asymmetry. The way we're going to look for this is compare the right and left sides. We're looking for things that are grossly abnormal. Now, the word atrophy, it means a wasting away of muscle. So you can see that in the top picture here. On the back side of his shoulder, he has this big indentation. So there's a muscle group here. It's called an infraspinatus. It's one of the rotator cuff muscles. You can see in this gentleman, it's completely missing. And that's typically a sign that the nerve is not firing that muscle, or there's a major tear within the muscle. Again, that would be a red flag. Then here on the bottom, we see something called winging, scapular winging. So we see the medial border of her scapula is lifted away completely from the back. And this was actually a case that our medical team dealt with. And this was an entrapment of a nerve called the long thoracic nerve. And it controls one of the key stabilizers around the shoulder blade. Okay? So you can see without that muscle group working, that shoulder does not have the stability. So it's lifting away from the back. The picture on the right here was actually shortly after surgery, so got that muscle group firing again, and look, we're back to normal. So both of those things would be red flags. The next thing we're looking at is obvious dysfunctional movement. So again, looking right and left sides, and just a quick note on that. Unilateral athletes are going to definitely see deviation between right and left sides. So a baseball player, for example, they use that right arm or they use that left arm way more than the other side. So things are going to happen that create changes between right and left sides. In addition to that, everyone tends to have normal deviations between each side. But if we see anything super abnormal such as this, where that inferior angle of the scapula is lifting way, way off the back, and you can pair this with a significant loss in range of motion, those would be something that would be more concerning and a reason to see a medical professional for that. Now the next condition is going to be numbness, swelling, or weakness. So the feeling of numbness, like your arm is going to sleep, or you feel this deadening of your arm, or maybe you find pins and needles popping up, that's going to be a red flag. And now this may happen as part of your activities where you've been in position for an extended period of time. So say you've been working at a desk for a while and you start feeling that arm going numb, or maybe you woke up and you were laying on it while you're sleeping. If the arm is dead or feeling numb because of those things, I would not create a red flag after that. Now, if you're finding numbness popping up just as you go throughout your day, where all of a sudden the arm just tends to go dead, that would be a red flag. The next thing is swelling. So you find that arm getting puffy. And then the last one here is weakness. So this is not weakness like I went to the gym, I didn't lift the normal amount of weight. This is going to be weakness like I cannot lift a glass of water or reach across my body to put on a seatbelt or wash my hair. A limitation like that would need to see a medical professional. The fifth red flag is going to be pain or apprehension. And this word apprehension, that's a feeling of fear of movement. Like I don't want to move my arm because something bad is going to happen. And specifically here, we're talking about you feel like the arm is going to come out of socket. So in certain positions, you feel like that arm is going to dislocate or pop out of socket. And that alone, apprehension, is going to be a red flag. Let's take a closer look at pain. To assess for pain, we're actually going to go through the crossover symmetry program. So here in a few videos, I'm going to teach you our activation program. And as you go through activation, we're going to look for pain with any of the movements. If you do have pain, it's not necessarily a red flag until you've done a couple things first. The first thing is I want you to reduce the resistance. So drop down in resistance and see if you still have pain. If you do have pain, I want you to use the exercise modification that I will provide in the training. So try to do the movement just a little bit differently, but it's still going to train similar muscle groups in certain ways. If you still have pain after that, you still have one more thing you can do. You can pass over that exercise. We're going to allow 2 free passes as you go through the program. So there's 7 exercises total. You get to skip 2 of them if you need to. Now, hopefully, as we build stability, things start improving around the shoulder. These scaling options are going to go away. So we're going to go up in resistance. We're going to start doing the exercises as prescribed, or maybe we'll start incorporating exercises that were once skipped. But if you cannot do these things, that would be a red flag. And our last red flag, you're not seeing improvements. So if you've done the program for 2 weeks, so you followed our 30-day shoulder fix, and after 2 weeks, you do not feel like things are getting better, that would be a red flag and a reason to see a medical professional. And key word here is improvements. So maybe the shoulder is not perfect. Maybe you still have occasional pain popping up with certain movements, but things have got better. I encourage you just keep pushing forward. Keep working on the stability and mobility and improving how your shoulder moves, and pretty soon you're going to be back to full function. But if after 2 weeks you're not getting better, or even worse, things are going backwards, if things are getting worse, that's definitely a red flag, a reason to see a medical professional. So there you go, guys. That's a red flag screen. I hope you're feeling more confident in moving forward with the crossover symmetry program. Now, let's move to the next section. We're going to talk about getting ahead of your pain. All right, let's talk a bit more about getting ahead of pain. And we've actually already started that with the red flag shoulder screen. So we were looking for and identifying those rare things that do need medical evaluation, and that's going to be the first step of the rehab process. And assuming you cleared that, things are looking good for the pain track. And next, we need to look at what's the real trick to getting ahead of pain. And that's going to happen through exercise modifications you'll do with crossover symmetry, and then also removing any pain triggers, any painful stimulus that are creeping into your life. And by doing these 2 things, we're essentially going to create a blank slate to rework how your shoulders are designed to move. And know that this time off is going to allow your inflammation to decrease. It's going to allow some healing to happen. And those crossover symmetry exercises are going to become more effective. Next, let's look at these 2 things a little bit closer, starting with the exercise modifications. So it's super important that as you're going through the crossover symmetry, you're doing this pain-free. And you should be able to do that through a combination of using a lighter resistance. And then in addition to that, you're also going to be using the exercise modifications that I will show you in the training. And then don't forget, as you learned in the red flag screen, first thing you're going to do is drop down the resistance. And then after that, you're going to use that exercise modification if the movement is still causing pain. And then you still get 2 free passes with the program. So if the movement's causing you pain with those 2 first things, just skip over it. And then progressively, we're going to build back into full ranges of motion using heavier levels of resistance. And then also reincorporating those movements that we were skipping over. I know this is going to be hard for a lot of you. You want your shoulder pain gone now. You feel like scaling or skipping over things is going to inhibit the process. But be patient with me, okay? I encourage you, trust the process. Know that these restrictions will soon be gone. And next, we need to look at eliminating those painful triggers. So these are those painful stimulus. And we need to cover a few places in our life that our shoulder may be becoming irritated. Understand this may be difficult to remove those painful triggers, but you're going to have to find the best way to remove things without totally inhibiting and throwing off your life. So for a lot of you, these pain triggers are related to those physical activities that you love. But do not fret. You don't need to completely shut down the activities you love, but you do need to scale back on those full range shoulder movements that are causing your shoulder pain to happen. And then progressively, you just reincorporate those movements that have been aggravating, but now you're going to be reincorporating them pain-free. And I'm actually going to help you guide through that part of the process with the 30-day shoulder fix. And many of the sports sections are going to show you modifications for movements and training plans that we can get you better at your sport, but without irritating your shoulder. Also, your shoulder pain may be work-related. And in that case, maybe a 1-week vacation is in order if your activities or your work is super shoulder intensive and simply unavoidable in your daily lives. So I know it might sound crazy. Using your time off to do rehab exercise is simply crazy, but it's certainly better than 2 to 3 therapy appointments a week, and then especially better in surgery. And also, I understand your pain may be part of your lifestyle. So things that are super shoulder intensive as part of your daily activities are just as problematic as exercise training. It's excessive load and things like that. So first of all, you might need to avoid things like painting your house or super intensive yard work. Also note things like carrying your child could be super shoulder intensive as well. We might need to find a new way to carry our kid. But know that through these things, you're going to be one step closer to ending your shoulder pain. Now, in the next step, let's get after it with fixing the cause for your shoulder problems. Hey, and welcome to the Crossover Symmetry 30-Day Shoulder Fix. This is going to be a general template of using crossover symmetry and then pairing that with lifestyle and activity modifications to help promote the recovery process. So following this 30-day fix is going to put you on the track towards ending your shoulder pain and getting you back to what you love to do without the setbacks you're having currently with the shoulder pain problem. So jumping into week 1, we're going to work on activation every single day, if not multiple times a day. And this is going to be the key part of this system, is doing activation as much as you can. Okay? It should be non-fatiguing. If anything, it should be freshening. Like, hey, I'm ready to go. My shoulders are feeling in a better position. Posture's improved. I feel a little bit more range of motion in my shoulder. Okay, so this is going to be critical towards your success with the crossover program. In addition to that, this week I want you to focus on the crossover mobility program just as much as you're doing activation. And I would do this right before your activation work. So spend about 5-10 minutes of rolling out some of those tight muscles and some of those pain spots, and then getting your activation. So you'll notice after your mobility, hey, I got a little bit more range of motion. You're going to want to implement that with the activation work. The restrictions. I really want you to be safe on your shoulder for just 1 week. I want you to limit and modify any heavy, strenuous activities you might do on your shoulder. So that could be your activity stuff. That could be lifestyle things like carrying a child or things you do at the office. If anything, you could even get a sling. You could buy these for super cheap at a drugstore. Just put yourself in a sling for the times that you're out in public. This is going to, no one's going to say, hey, I need you to help carry this heavy thing if you're in a sling. So you don't necessarily need it, but if that's going to be what you need so that you don't have to do these things that are causing your shoulder to flare up, whatever it takes. In regards to the very last day of your week, I want you to do this provocative test following the activation program without any sort of modifications. So, you're going to learn some modifications for the crossover symmetry system if you're having shoulder pain with any of the movements. I want you to just try the program without those modifications at this point. And I don't care if you're scaling down the resistance, that's fine, but I want to see that you can do the program without modifications. If you cannot do that, I want you to reset. I want you to follow week 1 again. If you can do the program as we prescribe it on our video training without running into shoulder pain, hey, that's a good news. Let's go ahead and move forward into week 2. All right, now we're looking at week 2. Still doing activation every single day, if not multiple times a day. Mobility and recovery. I want you to do the mobility program now at least 3 times this week. But honestly, if you've got the time to get it in, mobility is always a great implement right before your activation. So maybe about 5 minutes, just quick roll out, release some of those tight muscles, then knock out your activation work. The recovery program. I want you to do this at least 3 times this week. We're going to focus on that slow eccentric. So that will be done as a separate session from your activation. So, for example, maybe you get up in the morning, do a little time with the mobility work, go through your activation, you head off to work, and then when you come home that night, maybe go through a set of your recovery. So that'd just be a template you could follow, but make it your own, whatever you need. In regards to restrictions, I want you to limit any sort of pressing movements, and I want you to limit any amount of overhead work. So, okay, feel okay with pulling things. Maybe if you need to carry some things for a bit, that's fine. But I want you to be really careful in these sort of loaded pressing movements in front or above you, and also being careful with maybe pulling from above your head as well. Provocative test. We're doing crossover symmetry on the last day with the strength program. So go through our strength program. Can you do the strength program pain-free? If you can, you're good to go to that next week. If not, I want you to reset and do week 2 over again. All right, let's look at week 3 now. Still doing activation every single day. You're seeing a theme here. We still have mobility 3 times this week at least. Again, we're doing that right before activation, and if you've got the time to, and you feel like it's benefiting you, I would definitely integrate that on every day that you can. Now, we're going to start integrating the strength program as well. I want you to do this 3 times this week. So, you're going to start by doing activation right before your strength work. So, you can do this a lot of different ways, but again, fit it to your schedule. I'll give you a little template. So, you get up in the morning, go through a little bit of mobility, then you do your activation, go to work, and then maybe you go to the gym later that day. You're going to do activation as part of the gym work. Okay, so right before you get into your workout program, or even just go home, do your activation. Maybe you go through a small workout program. Obviously, we're being careful with following those restrictions I provided you. And then you're going to go through the strength program right after your workout. So at that point, you should feel warmed up, maybe a little bit sweaty. That's a great time to do the strength work. But if you just went home that day and you didn't go to the gym or whatever you did to get warmed up, I want you to do a set of activation right before your strength work. So go through activation, get that shoulder warmed up, and then go through a set of the strength program. The restrictions. We're now cool with any sort of loaded pressing in front of the body. Obviously, if you're running into shoulder pain with anything, I want you to back off of that. But I want you to be really careful with any amount of overhead work. So reaching up above your head. So if you're going to, paint your ceiling, that'd be a no-no this week. Okay? I want you to be really smart in how you're bringing your arms up and above your head. The last day, I want you to do this provocative test. Test out a movement that was once painful for you. Whatever that might be. It could be something work-related. It could be something that you have to do as part of your workout program, or you like to do as part of your workout program. Just test something out that was once a problem for you that really held you back. What made you start doing this crossover symmetry system? And give that a go. See if you can do this now pain-free. If you can, you're good to move into week 4. And this is our last and final week. Still doing activation every single day. Strength and mobility at least 3 times this week. But again, you can always do mobility if you feel like it's helping you. In regards to restrictions, get into whatever you do. Whatever you love to do. We have no restriction in regards to range of motion. I just want you to be careful with the load and volume that you apply those things. Your provocative test. Are you pain-free? Okay. Have you solved your shoulder pain problem? If so, congratulations. You're not done with crossover symmetry. I want you to keep using this so you can check out our performance track for recommendations on how to integrate this into your lifestyle and your activities that you love to do. But in regards to your provocative test, just want you to take it a self-assessment. Hey, are you pain-free now? If so, congratulations. If not, just reset, do this week over again, and eventually we'll get you there. All right, congratulations, and check out how the 30-Day Shoulder Fix is going to solve your shoulder problems.